All right, guys, welcome to episode 7 of the Jake Shields podcast. Took last week off, had some stuff going on, and not a whole ton of stuff going on in the fight game. But Jake, what's up, man? How was your week?
Good, man. Just been super busy. Lately. I was out in San Francisco doing some business and back in Vegas training some people. So,
yeah, man, back in Vegas. That's good to hear. Awesome stuff. And you get back from California, and obviously, the UFC has major cards. But cards coming up with 264. It's going to be massive. We're going to be talking about it for the next 2 weeks. But right off the hop, the UFC drops a bombshell on fans yesterday announcing that Derek Lewis will take on Cyril Gane for the interim heavyweight championship of the world. Now, Francis Ngannou, you're there at Extreme Couture. He just fought about 3 months ago. He brings the title home to Africa. It's beautiful, the content, the celebration, everything. Now, because he won't fight in August as opposed to September, they pulled an interim fight. What's going on, and is this causing a huge stir? I mean, you're at Extreme Couture. You must know a little bit.
Yeah, I actually saw Francis in the morning yesterday, but it was before the news broke. He was in there. He looked a little quiet. Maybe he kind of knew the news because he seemed a little off, and then came back and read the news. And I'm like, that makes zero sense. It was he fought 3 months ago and was willing to fight in 3 months. That's 6 months. It's common for champions to fight around twice a year. It's they're clearly doing him dirty. It's not about the fight time. It's clearly about the contract negotiation. It's Dana trying to be a bully, and it sucks. It might drive the love out of sport for Francis. He was happy. He was excited. He was starting to love the sport, and now he looked, he might start feeling demoralized and starting to hate the sport. This is a guy who's on the cusp of becoming a true international superstar, and for Dana just to do him dirty like that, it just makes no sense. I don't know why he would do that.
It makes absolute zero sense to me, especially when you look at 155. Khabib said in the octagon, "I'm retired," and Dana White chased him around like a desperate ex-girlfriend for almost 6 months before they did the Oliveira and Chandler fight.
Yeah, exactly. He kisses up to him, because I guess he knows how he is, and he tries to punk Francis. And you can't really do that to these guys. Some of these guys, they're not Francis probably has money now. He doesn't want to be treated like that. He could switch over and become an international star in boxing. He's a lot of guys couldn't, but with his power, his size, and speed, he has the potential to become a world champion in boxing as well. So Dana to try to bully him is not a good move. He's already got John Jones on strike for being treated like this. It's champion after champion that he just treats like dirt.
Yeah, man, there's definitely some sort of correlation going on there, and I don't understand where the motive is here for the UFC. It was such a great story. You got all these African champions. They seem to be embracing that, and then this.
Yeah, because Francis too, he has that the one-punch knockout power, and I like people do. He's like the Tyson. Plus, he's a super likable guy. He has an amazing story. He's he's not fun to train with, but he's the nicest guy when he's not punching you in the head in the gym. He's just truly a genuine nice guy. So to see him treated like this, it's I think most of the fans can see he's a good guy too. So I think a lot of the fans aren't too happy about this. I think a lot of the fans, I like John Jones. A lot of the fans don't. So when Dana treats him like dirt, people are like, whatever. But I think the fans don't like this because they know that Francis doesn't deserve to be treated like this.
Yeah, Francis is definitely a fan favorite, but I want to take it to the fight, though. We got Derek Lewis on a 4-fight win streak. In the UFC, you got Gane on a 9-0 in his last 9 fights. He has 6 wins in a row in the UFC after he beat Volkov at UFC Vegas 30. I mean, listen, it's cool to see Derek Lewis get the hometown fight in Texas or whatever, but there's no reason that this should have just been a number 1 contender fight for Jones and Ngannou. No, that's absolutely how it should have been.
100%. And like I said, this is a good fight. I like both these guys. It should be a number 1 contendership, and it takes away from the fight, making it's not their fault, but it takes away from the fight. It makes people bitter about it. I hope they're getting paid better at least. Maybe they have the contract where they're paid better for a title. That's the one positive of it. But yeah, it takes away from the fight. It should clearly be a number 1 contendership, not the title. Both of them know it. The fans know it. It's just it makes no sense. It is a good fight, though. I think Lewis, crazy knockout power, technical striker. So it's an interesting matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a super interesting matchup, man. 9-0 in his career for Gane. He's been unbelievable. Derek Lewis, we all saw what he did to Blades, and he ended up squeaking out that pretty crappy win versus Francis. So that fight even made sense, but to not wait till September doesn't make sense. But I want to shift things to UFC 264. We're going to be in town for that. Can't wait. I mean, what a week to come to Vegas for me.
Man, it's going to be great. This week's going to be madness there. There's so much going on with, high rollers that doing events. They have stuff going on all week. I'm sure the press conferences. There's going to be so many fight fans in town. It's going to be the whole week's gonna be madness. You're gonna be happy. You've been locked up in Canada, and Vegas has been fully nuts the last month, maybe a little bit longer. So it's gonna be an exciting week.
Yeah, man, I can't wait to get out and see people like in a bar without masks on and actually like not socially distanced and enjoying themselves. Life back to normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels a little weird. You're probably being shocked from people masked and staying away, and everyone here is crowding together, packed dance floors, packed gyms. I mean, it's been like that for a while here. It's Vegas is open.
I love it, man. I love that. And what I don't love, though, is UFC 264 already off to a little bit of a rough start. Sean O'Malley was due to take on Louis Smolka, but Smolka has had to pull out now. I know the UFC is trying to keep Sean O'Malley on the card, looking at maybe Andre Touchy-Feely as a possible opponent, but Sean O'Malley, 5-1 in the UFC, crazy hair, fan favorite. They got to find him a fight and keep him on this card.
Yeah, like you say, he's a fan favorite. People love O'Malley. He's exciting. He brings it. He's done a great job of marking himself and getting attention. So hopefully they're able to find an opponent. And if Philly steps up, that would be great. It's a tough opponent to step up with, and barely over a week's notice, but that's a ballsy thing to do and a big opportunity, and that could make a good fight.
Yeah, absolutely. O'Malley's got some nice boxing on him. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be able to find someone in that like bantamweight size who really matches up for him. I think that's going to be tough for them to find him an opponent.
Yeah, it's tough to come up with an opponent like that quick for such a good opponent. You don't really. It takes you at least 3 weeks to get in base shape. So if someone's unless they've been training really hard, it's 1 week, and you can't really train in a week because you're going to burn your body out. So basically, it's whatever shape you're in. And even if you've been training pretty hard, it's not the same as being in fight camp. So it's there's no way whoever steps in will be 100%, but it's a big opportunity too. He's a really popular fighter. If you step in there and beat him, you could rise your stock.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those slingshot fights where maybe an unknown gets a chance, and if they end up getting a win, so be it. Now, we do have another fight here on the card that's interesting. Tuivasa is taking on Greg Hardy. Tuivasa is 5-3 in the UFC, and he's on a 2-fight win streak. Greg Hardy is 4-3-1 in the UFC. He lost his last fight to Tybura. He had a career with the Dallas Cowboys and Carolina Panthers of the NFL. Have you seen much of Hardy? How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, actually, I've seen a lot of Hardy because at first I thought it was like a gimmick. I'm like, oh, this guy's going to get killed. And he wasn't fighting the highest level opponents, but he's actually much better than I thought. You could tell he was training seriously, extremely good athlete, explosive. So I think he's a decent fighter with potential. Yeah, this is a tough fight. Both power strikers. This one, I think, is a toss-up.
Yeah, definitely going to end in some sort of knockout variation, I think, whichever way it goes. I expect that one to have an electric finish and to just be an electric product overall. Speaking of electric products, guys, I want to let you know that we have a great deal for you over at FusionFightGear.com. Use promo code JAKEAJJ to receive 20% off your total shipping costs or off your total cost of any product in the store. They got gis, they got rash guards, a bunch of cool stuff. And if you're watching down in Australia, New Zealand, you can go over to Poncho Michael. That's PANCHOMICHAEL.com.au. JAKEAJJ. Same promo code, same savings, different website because you're down under. Jake, I know this is another great fight on the UFC 264 card. Gilbert Burns taking on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Burns is 12-4 in the UFC, lost his last match against Kamaru Usman. Ton of emotion in that fight. Wonderboy's on a 2-fight win streak. He's 11-4-1. What a fight this is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is the weight I fought at, so I still closely watch 170 welterweight. It's a great fight. I mean, Burns has a clear advantage in the grappling, but I'd say Wonderboy on the striking. But Burns also is a good striker, but dealing with Wonderboy's like movement and speed's difficult. And guys, his footwork, guys have a hard time cutting him off, taking him down. This is an exciting fight, one I can't wait to see. And this could possibly put in #1 contender, especially if Wonderboy wins, because he hasn't fought for the title yet. I think Wonderboy and Usman could be an amazing fight.
Yeah, Wonderboy is like the last guy in that top 5 that hasn't got a shot at Usman yet. I think Edwards did, and I think he had to back out or something had happened. But Wonderboy is like the one guy that you'd like to see kind of get that shot. If he beats Burns here, he's the next guy.
Yeah, I think especially because he's just so awkward to fight. His movement, he's one of those guys like, oh man, he's not easy to deal with. So it's an interesting one. But there's so many guys at 170. It's just hard to say who's next in line. I mean, Edwards has to be sitting there. The win streak he's on.
Yeah, you got to think. Yeah, that's true. You got to wonder about Leon as well. He's paid his dues.
Yeah, to me, I think it's kind of got to be Edwards.
I mean, well, yeah, I guess it'll all depend who Edwards will face, because Usman and Colby's going to be a great fight. But that 170 division, when you look at it, that's got to be the best division in the UFC. 9-fight win streak for Edwards.
Yeah, I think generally 170s and 155s are always stacked. There's so many guys are around those weights. They're athletic. They move good. Those tend to be, I mean, sometimes another weight will be the most stacked, but generally those tend to be the two deepest weight classes.
Yeah, man. Speaking of 155, obviously the main event of the evening, Conor McGregor taking on Dustin Poirier. The trilogy has arrived. You know, Conor gets the first one. Poirier gets the second one by a devastating TKO victory. You know, Conor comes out in this boxing stance, gets his legs basically kicked off, gets knocked out. How do you see Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor going down?
Well, I think Conor's the more technical, more explosive, sharper fighter. And I think the last one, you know, he was winning in the beginning. He was picking him apart. But I think Dustin is the tougher, better conditioning, and keeps coming. So, again, it's kind of a toss-up. I see Conor winning early. And if he can be in amazing shape, I can see him winning the fight. But Dustin just keeps coming. So it's kind of how they show up. If Conor can get a finish early, or if Dustin comes in and breaks him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Poirier, like you said, he has that. He's one of those pressure fighters, right? He's just going to keep coming forward. And if you don't solve him fast, you're going to end up on your ass.
Yeah, definitely. And Conor has a difficulty with the people that pressure. Kind of like when Nate beat him the first time, you know, he just pressured him and Conor tried trading with him and Conor broke mentally. Conor's he's an extremely good fighter, but sometimes you can see him break mentally a little bit. I was in the corner for the first Diaz fight, and you know, halfway through that second round, I could see him breaking. I was, you know, started yelling to Nate, I see him breaking, and you could see it happening. And same thing with Khabib a little bit. Same thing when he fought Dustin. So it's, if Conor's mentally prepared and has taken this camp serious, then I think he wins. But if not, Dustin could win it.
Yeah, Dustin Poirier is not a guy you can come in and after half training to try to set up a boxing match against Manny Pacquiao. Against Poirier, he'll take your lights out. Winner of this fight's going to go on to fight Charles Oliveira. How do you see Poirier matching up against Oliveira, and how do you see Conor matching up against Oliveira?
I mean, obviously those are great fights, but I think Oliveira's a bad matchup for both of them. He's got, you know, great takedowns, great jiu-jitsu. They both, I would say, have better striking, but Oliveira has good striking as well. So, I mean, not an easy fight, but I'd probably pick Oliveira against either one of them.
Yeah, me too. You saw what Oliveira was able to do with Chandler. I mean, Chandler almost had him early, and then he came out and just turned his lights out, which showed that he could do that too.
Yeah, I mean, he's been extremely impressive lately. He just, you know, huge win streak, and the guy just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, man. Speaking of people getting better and better and huge things going on, the return of the last emperor is going on in Bellator. Fedor Emelianenko will return to fight in his home country of Russia. How do you think about that? You know, you spent some time around there. How big is that for the sport?
Man, me being in the sport forever and Fedor being one of the greatest, if not the greatest heavyweight of all time, to me, that's extremely exciting. You know, I love the guy. He's way past his prime, but he's still a legend. You know, the guys like me look up to him. So for him to be able to fight in Russia, I mean, likely his last fight, and it's great. Bellator's moving in there. The Russian fighters have massively improved. They've been getting better and better. I would say they're probably number 2 in the world, right behind us. And to keep them improving and to bring it, I think it's a great idea to bring Fedor there and all the Russians, and they can showcase all the Russian fighters that Bellator has.
Absolutely agree with that 110%. Now, I know a lot of people are saying that Barnett, Overeem, or Dos Santos are possible opponents for him. So there's some good guys out there too.
Yeah, those are all extremely big names and tough guys. You know, like I said, Fedor's a little past his prime, but those would all be good matchups.
Yeah, 100%. You got to think if they're bringing Fedor back in his home country, they're going to want to give him a good matchup, but you want him to be in the fight too. Like, he's got to win, no?
Yeah, Burnett might be a little too much. I think, you know, Burnett still seems pretty damn sharp, so I don't know if that would be the best matchup. But again, it's whoever he fights, I'll tune in and watch.
Oh, 100%. That's such a huge move for Bellator. Now, speaking of Bellator, you got Patchy Mix under your wing. What's going on with Patchy? I just want to check in. I love Patchy, man. He's my kind of fighter. What's going on with Patchy right now? What's next for him at 135? What are they talking about?
Well, Patchy just moved to Vegas full time because he was back and forth between New York and here. So now he's here full time, and he wants to fight now. You know, he's been calling me, being like, "Oh, I need to get something." So I actually called and set him up to match on High Rollers. So you'll be able to watch him on that while you're out here.
Nice.
He's gonna be doing that on the I believe it's the 9th, the day before the UFC, that Friday.
Yeah.
So he's doing that, and yeah, he's ready to fight. It's that guy. I think Gallagher's making excuses, trying to push the fight back. So it's a matter of Gallagher signs the contract. He's ready to go anytime.
And that's it. He's not pushing for a title after the title change. He wants Gallagher because of the shit that went down at the last fight.
He's just a game fighter, wants to fight anyone. He would obviously love to jump in and fight for a title, but I think the fight everyone wants is him and Gallagher, because they had a lot of bad blood. They were talking crap. It was kind of funny. He was texting or DMing him on Instagram like all weekend, being like acting like a little girl. So I don't think Patchy likes him. But it's Gallagher did the talk, but is he going to be able to actually show up and fight? That's the question.
Yeah, you never know, man. You never know. One thing I know is Patchy's a gamer. That's sick that he is going to be down at the High Rollers event, man. I'm super looking forward to that. Now, I want to bring up something that happened. Involves a Scrap Pack member. I'm going to try to walk carefully here. I don't need any Stockton slaps from anybody, but, we had Joe Schilling post a video of him absolutely clocking a fan. We're going to play it here, and then I just want to get your reaction to it. So this is Joe Schilling here lacing a fan, and I'll tell you what I think about it, which is probably a little different than a lot of the media will say, but here it is. Oh, hits him with the old 1-2. What is your take on that?
First, I've been friends with Joe for years, been out with him many times. I've never seen him get hostile for anyone. I know he's a mellow guy. So when I first watched the clip, I go, oh man, that might have been a little bit unnecessary and a little bit aggressive. But then I watched it several times in slow motion. And then also it sounds like that's such a small clip. There's a lot going on before that, Talked to Joe, and the guy had been extremely noxious. He looked like he had a punchable face. But when I watched it a lot slower in slow motion, you see when he kind of pushes Joe as he walks by. So Joe kind of turns around back towards him. And right when he turns around, you barely can see it unless you look back, but he kind of raises his shoulder and kind of flashes at him like he's going to throw a fake punch or a real punch. And as soon as he sees that, Joe just reacted and just dropped him. And then it's put him down. So like I said, when I first watched it, I'm like, oh man, I think Joe might have overreacted. But after watching it in slow motion, I'm like, all right, the guy flashed at him and it's, deserved to get dropped. Not to mention it looked like it might be one of those it might be good for the guy to get dropped. He's one of those guys look like he's obnoxious, just yelling at everyone, talking shit to the bus boys and stuff, treating them like shit. And that's I think that's what bothered Joe. I guess he was mouthing off to the bus boy, treating him like shit and acting like he was better than everyone. I think that's why he was already really irritated with the guy.
Okay, yeah, because there had to be more context than just that little video coming out. But exactly, like you said, this is the kind of guy who maybe needed to get that punch in the face. Some of these guys go out, they treat a busboy like that. They end up not running into Joe Schilling. They run into someone that doesn't fight. They end up maybe getting the better of them, and they keep going out and being a drunk asshole to everybody. So you know what? Well, Joe maybe hit him a little harder than he had to for a guy who has his sort of striking ability. This is probably saved the situation for someone else down the line that would have had to deal with this dickhead.
Yeah, hopefully he'll wake up after that and be like, I've been a douche and I better act a little more careful when I'm out drinking. It's quite possible to also go right back to being a douche and harassing people, but there's a good chance he'll wake up and think a little bit and be like, maybe I was kind of acting like a fool. I'm sure he was drunk and maybe he doesn't realize what a douche he was being, but getting dropped like that can be a wake up call for some people. It's not always the worst thing to drop somebody.
No, sometimes people need it, right? And it's just the way it goes. Do you think he should have posted the video, though, in hindsight?
My opinion is I would not have posted the video. I think it's gotten it's gotten him a lot of press. I saw it was even on TMZ. Like my girlfriend was like, oh, because I don't go to TMZ. My girlfriend's like, oh, your friend Joe is on TMZ. I'm like, oh, damn, that went everywhere. So it's so it got him publicity, but I would be a little worried about the repercussions. But I think, he said he was in Florida. The guy kind of flashed at him. I think he'll be all right. You never know nowadays, but I think he'll be okay. And hey, got him publicity, some good, some bad, but hey, we liked it.
Yeah, I liked it. And you know what? Hey, Bellator, get on getting Schilling a fight too. Maybe this will get him a fight. Let's get him back in the octagon here. Let's go.
Right. I haven't seen Schilling fight in a while. Maybe they can set something up and jump back in there. Everyone's like, oh yeah, let's get this guy back in. That was a good knockout.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Schilling's a legend. Speaking of legends, though, I want to go back to the previous week. We couldn't talk about this, but MMA has a boxing victory pulled back after the Jake Paul and Ben Askren stuff. Anderson Silva puts on a boxing clinic against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Did you catch any of that?
Yeah, I did, man. I loved it. Anderson Silva, another legend. We were talking about Fedor, and Anderson's another one of those legends. And he looked amazing. He was out there moving, 46 years old, and picking Cesar Chavez Jr. Cesar Chavez Jr. apart. And this guy's not a slouch. This guy's a legit world champion. He's 10 years or 11 years younger than Anderson. Again, he might be past his prime as well, but Anderson still picked apart a real, true boxing champion and did it. Look like he had fun, like the old Anderson. And I love seeing a guy who went out and lost in the UFC coming out and dominating boxing.
Hell yeah, man. Especially after all that happened with the Jake Paul and all that crap, right? All the shit everyone took. It was nice for him to pull it back. But Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., his record was like 54-2 and something. Like, was he getting handpicked opponents? He only retired a year ago. Anderson beat his ass.
Yeah, I think early in his career, he got handpicked some opponents because his father was such a legend.
I guess.
I think there's a little truth to that. I think he had some padded record early on, but he did win some legit world titles. I'm not a huge boxing. I don't follow boxing that close. I don't know who he fought for these world titles, but I know he did have legit world titles. So it couldn't have been that handpicked. And so regardless, a guy with that good of a record and winning world titles, it's a huge win for Anderson, especially being the much older fighter.
It's way more impressive than Jake Paul knocking out Ben Askren, who never really struck ever, like only ever threw punches to get takedowns.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's Askren he picked the perfect opponent because he was a pure wrestler. All he did was wrestle and take guys down. He had zero striking, so it was a smart move by Paul, and he had to go in there. It was a good knockout, but again, he picked the perfect opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw his record was 52-6-1. Thanks for that, Jack, for grabbing the record. 52-6-1, but Anderson Silva moves to 2-1. Love to see that. Now I want to fire the last thing, which is something that, has happened in MMA before. We had a transgender female athlete crack the skull of someone else, but it's come up into the news again recently. We had a Laurel Hubbard, the name is. It's a transgender weightlifter. What's going on with this transgender stuff? Is this not damaging to females in this capacity?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, this is being a lifelong athlete. I have a daughter who's an athlete. I think it's absolutely absurd. I think everyone knows it, or almost everyone knows it. Anyone that's ever played sport knows the difference between men athletes and women athletes. This is huge. There's a reason why people get so angry if a guy hits his wife or girlfriend, because he's so much stronger. Everyone knows it's not a fair competition. Completely known. I have no problem if a guy wants to put on a dress and call him a girl. I'll call him that. But to go and act like you're a real woman and play in sports, it's just it's disrespectful. It's sociopathic, and it's not good for trans rights. It makes you look at them and be like, these are not good people. And it's luckily there's not a ton of them doing the sports, but in every case when they do, you'll get someone who is a mediocre man like this Hubbard, never won anything in the weights, and there's other track athletes, same thing. They go from mediocre to completely dominating. It just shows the difference. So you get these guys that were poor athletes, and they're going to win women competitions that they work so hard for. It's completely unfair, From someone who takes sports so seriously, it would be terrible if I was a woman and some man could come and just take the sport from me. It's ridiculous that everyone's just sitting back and allowing it because they don't want to be called like a transphobe. It's not transphobic. It's just the wrong thing.
Yeah, no, it's not at all to want fair competition. And I'm like you, I'm all for it. If you want me to call you, your name was David, but you transitioned and you want me to call you Jennifer, I will. But it doesn't mean that you should be able to hop in and physically fight someone like Fallon Fox, the MMA transgender fighter that cracked a woman's skull. Like, who's commissioning that?
Yeah, no, it's insanity, because I think 99% of the population knows it's insanity. Like, I don't know anyone that thinks it makes sense, but somehow the commissioners are allowing it, the politicians are allowing it. We've got this weird thing in our society. I think Canada's the same, where it's like you're so scared to be called like a bigot or a racist that you'll pretend like something isn't true that is. So we all know that you can't just say, I'm a woman. Like, what do I say? A woman go back and fight in the UFC? It would make zero sense. And we all know it, but for some reason, people are just playing along with it out of fear.
Yeah, it's sad to see. And you know what? You brought it up, like talking about men coming in and dominating. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to women. The only difference is testosterone. When you say like men and women have physical differences, it's why they freak out. Like the women's 100-meter dash record is 10.82 seconds. Last year in America, I think something like 2,500 boys in high school ran a 10.82.
Yeah, exactly. So with the way they're doing it, you could have people that are completely mediocre athletes come in and dominate women's sports. And you have these girls that have dedicated their entire life to trying to win the Olympics or pro sports. And this guy comes in, switches over, says he's a girl, and dominates. I mean, it happened recently I haven't followed all the cases, but I know in track, I think it was college, some guy was ranked 400, and then switches over to a woman in the next year and dominates the women's division and wins the nationals. It's just like, I'm not sure how people are sitting back and allowing this.
No, and somebody's got to eventually step up and say it. And that's why I like that you called it out, because it's not even about transgender anything. It's like, I would like there to be, like, have an Olympics transgender division. Like, you can have all of that stuff. It's just, at what point is feminism going so far with these people that it starts to hurt women?
No, exactly. It's anti-feminism. It's anti-woman and anti-science. So what we're doing is there's not that many of them, luckily, that are so not dominate all the competitions, but there's only a few of them. So a few people we're bending the rules for all women over a few people, and we're going to allow them to start dominating women's sports. And it's already starting to happen. You know, they haven't totally taken over, but we're seeing more and more of them coming in and dominating. And it's hopefully people put a stop to it soon.
Yeah, it's complete bullshit. And out there, some girl misses her chance at the Olympics, who's a biological female and has trained her whole life. It makes me sick, man. I hate that shit.
Yeah, no, it's one of the things that bothers me the most in sports. And as you look back and be like, man, why are we allowing this? And like, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Recently, some YouTuber went and said he was, I don't know who he was, but said he's was white. I think he was white. And he goes, oh, now I'm Korean. So it's like, how is it any different than just switching your race? It becomes a thing where it's there's reality and non-reality. And like I said, I'll treat you like a woman if you want, but you're not. You can't go compete women's sports.
No, exactly. And if you're Fallon Fox, you can't go in there and punch women in the fucking head. It's ridiculous. And anybody who calls me hateful for that, go ahead. If that's hateful, I'll be hateful.
Yeah, exactly. Like anytime a man beats a woman, we're all uptight. Like, oh my God, I can't believe he hit his wife or girlfriend. As we should be. But then they're sitting there being like, when she's beating up women, they're okay with it. It just completely makes zero sense.
Nah, none of it makes sense, man. It's all crazy. But man, next week we're gonna do the podcast down in Vegas. We'll get all that figured out, guys. I'm heading out of Canada here. I've been locked up too long, buddy. We're gonna catch you next week. Thanks for this. We'll have more UFC 264 stuff. Hopefully some cool interviews and shit going on for you guys. Hit that subscribe button at the bottom, buddy. Good talking with you, man. Take care.
Cool, man. Have a good one.
Cheers.